I want to talk today about one of the most important methods that I use for all of my drawings. It's something that is so obvious, but I don't necessarily think a lot of people are doing it. Now, those of you who know me know that I draw with coloured pencils in a realistic style. So all of the drawings that I create, I work from a reference photo. I find this is the best way to draw a realistic item. And something that's a very easy trap to fall into is not drawing what you see. It is so tempting when you're drawing something that you think you know what it looks like and drawing what you think you see and not what you actually see. I think it's a certain skill that takes practice to learn to kind of trust your eyes. So I think it'd be fun today to look at a drawing that I created recently, something that would be very easy to not trust what you see. I drew this ice cream sundae, and this is a really interesting drawing for a few reasons. First up, who doesn't love an ice cream sundae? It's just a fun thing to draw. But also, there are a lot of things here that could trick you. So for example, you assume that all of the ice cream is the same, but when we really look, you'll see that this line along here is more of a cream rather than an ice cream. This is more of a white colour, whereas this ice cream scoop here is more of a yellow colour. The same down the bottom, around here is more of a white colour, and down the bottom this is a similar colour to up here. And just making little observations like that is going to make all the difference to the drawing. Now also, because we're drawing a sundae and the bottom half of the ice cream is in a bowl, the top half is out of the bowl, the ice cream's kind of squished at the bottom. It creates an effect where you know that that ice cream is in glass. Where it's pressed up against the edge of the glass, it looks flat. And if we just draw the shapes that we can see here and the colours that we see, we will also be able to create that effect. Now, before we get started, if you want to draw this with me, it is available on my Patreon. I'll go through this whole drawing in much more detail and show you really step by step exactly how to create it. Now, my Patreon has loads of different tutorials in coloured pencil, watercolour pencil and graphite pencil. For every tutorial, I include really in-depth instructions as well as all of the real-time footage. The sketch outlines details of all of the colours I'll be using and the reference photo. And I have some reasonably fast drawings and then some much longer, more impressive drawings. Do check out the link in the description. So let me talk you through the process that I went through to draw this sundae and also the main things that I'm seeing. And hopefully by the end you can start to trust your eyes a little bit more. Now, whenever I'm drawing anything, I always like to start from the lightest colours and work towards the darkest colours. I find that that is not only a really nice way to build up all of the key shapes, but it's also such a forgiving method where we're needing to draw in all of these shapes. If we get something slightly in the wrong place, it means that it's much easier to correct than if we're going in with a darker colour. If you go in with a darker colour, you're just really committing to that colour. So I selected the lightest colour that I can see within the reference photo. And even though the ice cream scoop at the top and the cream towards the bottom are vastly different colours, I am using the same base colour. This is a French grey. They are reasonably similar here. Now I want to not only trust my colours that I can see within this area, so I would say that the kind of grey that's around here and the greys that are around here are actually a reasonably similar colour, even though the underlying colours are so different. Now I'm primarily right now talking about the colours I can see. In terms of the shapes, again, I just want to draw this like it is a series of shapes. Now I have made my life a lot easier in that I've already put down some sketch outlines, so I do know roughly what needs to go where, but I'm just drawing this like a series of shapes rather than trying to draw ice cream. I think that would be really hard. Now I'm still thinking about the lighter colours, and on particularly the ice cream areas, not the white cream areas. As I mentioned, they have more of a yellow tone. So let's add some of this very light yellow just lightly over the top to start making these areas look a little bit different from each other. From here, I'm still working my way through the lightest colours, and let's think about the lightest colours on the cherries. So the lightest colours on the cherries are probably this colour around here. Now at first glance, these colours around here look maybe white, but if we really look, this is a very light pink. It's really prominent, you can really see it here. So let's put down a light layer of a light pink, and then at least we have the cherry areas marked out. We've got those lightest colours marked in. We can start adding in the key shapes shapes in a second. So I'm going to continually work through these lightest colors, looking for the lightest color now on the syrup on the ice cream. And that is quite a bright kind of yellowy orange. And actually it's a very similar color on the, I think it's honeycomb. So when you really look, the underlying color on the syrup is very similar to the underlying color on this honeycomb, I think it is. So you can see how not only are a lot of the colors within the drawing actually quite similar to each other, but maybe the lightest colors are slightly different to what you might expect. You just assume that a cherry, for example, and a strawberry is red rather than what you really see. Now for this next area, this may seem a little bit peculiar because it's not necessarily something you would expect for an area where we're drawing white cream, but I'm actually using a reasonably dark, this is still a French grey. So looking at this cream here, look how dark some of the shadows are. It's particularly dark around here. It gets to really dark at the bottom where it's meeting that honeycomb, and all around here, even though this cream looks white, because it's in a shadow it is darker. This area is really dark. Even the lighter areas are very dark when you compare them to the light patches. So let's build up the shapes with this grey and just trust that because I can see this grey here, it will all come together even though it looks so dark. I think just so many people, as I say, just don't trust what they can see. And then that's very much the theme from now on. I'm working from those lighter colours towards the darker colours. On the syrup at the top here, although you wouldn't expect it, it's all built up of a series of what feels like some pretty random patches. But if I work through one drip at a time and actually draw the shapes I see here, it will end up looking like a reflective drip of syrup. And I can do exactly the same on the honeycomb down the bottom, mapping in all of the shapes around here, even if it doesn't seem quite right. So a lot of the honeycomb here is made up of a series of kind of grid shapes, some of which, like to the left of where I'm working here, are pretty sort of sensible grid shapes. But some areas like this area here, the squares just feel really random. But if I work through following what I can see, it will by the end all make sense. I just want to draw those shapes. And in fact, the way that the grid isn't a perfect grid, I think really makes it look like it's in a glass for some reason. If we take a minute to look at the glass, the bottom of the glass here, this is an area which can seem quite tricky because we're drawing a clear glass. We want to try and make it look like clear glass. But again, I just want to look at the shapes within here. So there's all of these curved shapes working their way around. And then there's some pretty light patches, but the actual bulk of the base of the glass here is quite dark. Some areas are very, very dark and some areas are pretty light, but not completely bright. So as I work through and work towards the darker colors, still just looking at all of the shapes that I can see here, quite quickly, it is starting to come together, but it's not looking completely realistic yet. The colors are not looking quite right, even if a lot of the shapes have been mapped out and they are looking right. So after all of these shapes have been built up and it is looking like an ice cream, I can then at this point start thinking about really, again, looking at that reference photo and adjusting all of the colors. And I'm just once again comparing my drawing to that reference photo and thinking about the most obvious color that's missing, even if it's not what you would expect. So it does make sense to me that the syrup needs to be a bit more yellow, and I can see it, so I should add that in. But after adding in the yellow, it's now not looking kind of browny orange enough. And then looking at the ice cream itself, in actuality, it's really quite dark and quite a kind of grey color. Now the ice cream scoop is a, I assume, vanilla ice cream scoop, but look at how dark the color is around here. It's quite light here. This is quite a light yellowy pink. But here it's really, really deep in shadow, particularly next to this drip. And it's even quite a dark grey around here. You wouldn't think the ice cream would be grey. So I can add that grey in and it looks a little bit peculiar at this point. But once we've added in this grey, we can start thinking about the next colour that's missing. So as I mentioned, there are some areas where I can see a little hint of pink, which you wouldn't expect for vanilla ice cream. So I can add that in and then start adding in some yellow to really brighten brighten it up, and it's already starting to help make the ice cream stand out quite a bit from the cream below, which is what we want to achieve. So then let's continue to brighten up the syrup here with really quite a vibrant orange now, but again, I can see it, so I should draw it before using a dark brown to get that contrast looking right. Now I'm happy with the actual ice cream. I can start working through some even darker grays on this cream section at the bottom to make those shadows really stand out. You'll remember how dark some of the areas of cream were down the bottom here. And then I can start using the mid-tone grey to add in some of those shadows before blending with the lightest grey. So this area that looks white is actually made up of a series of reasonably dark greys. So let's speed through the rest of the drawing now. But I'm very much following this same process and really looking at what the actual colours and shapes are rather than what I think they are. Now I do think that this is a skill, learning to trust what you see. And I think that when you realise it's something you do need to learn, it becomes much easier straight away. But you very much have to trust yourself. Now don't forget, if you want to draw this with me, it is available on my Patreon. I hope you found this video helpful. Happy drawing, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.